Coffee with a counselor, or in this case, coffee with the Kamloops mayor. We're joined on the line by Reid Hamer-Jackson. Mr. Mayor, good morning. How are you today?
I'm sorry to disappoint you. You couldn't get one of the counselors or what?
No, you're like one of the counselors, right? You're around that same table, and every once in a while we got to get the guy in the big chair on. So it's your turn here today.
Yes, I'm part of council.
Yes. How are things? Haven't had a chance to catch up with you yet here in 2024. How's the year treating you so far?
Good. Yeah, everything's good. I mean, other than, really busy behind the scenes, as everybody knows, it went public that there's a lot of code of conduct complaints. So, dealing with a lot of that kind of stuff, but that's all just stuff behind the scenes stuff for now.
Yeah, well, we'll leave it there for this morning and get into a little bit of the budget conversation, because that was obviously the big thing that was discussed at yesterday's meeting. Now, Kamloops Council able to keep the tax increase under 10%. Now, it's still a big number, 9.55, still a pretty large increase, but could have been much worse. How are you feeling about what you and your team were able to do here to try to whittle things down for taxpayers here this year?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I think we did a pretty good job there. A lot of questions asked. I mean, the meeting went longer, and people get upset because meetings go longer. But they're only one day. Council meetings are one day every 2 weeks or whatever. And I think there's a lot of things that need to be discussed, and I think that we got to be prepared when we have these kind of meetings to be prepared to be there and be there for a bit, because I think it's really important. You don't want to rush through things. It's kind of important.
Well, one of the big items was in regards to Kamloops Fire Rescue yesterday, with specifically talking about supplemental items. And you have a lot of concern here about downloading, from senior governments onto municipalities. We've kind of been seeing it more and more here, and that hasn't changed with Kamloops Fire Rescue, and there's some of their requests here. I guess, what are your major concerns when we look at emergency services here right now in our community?
Well, I look at it, it's the provincial government, BC Ambulance Services, that's their job is to go to emergency medical calls, and I think that we've got to continue to talk to them, BC Ambulance Service, about increasing their services and things like that. I made a phone call just before the last Committee of the Whole meeting to the senior person at BC Ambulance Service, and they'd indicated that there's going to be some things happening, and no guarantees with nothing, but just to try to slow the process down of basically again, why we would want, we're sending a letter to the province about downloading, and then here we are, wanting to start a division that's going to go to emergency medical, like overdoses and that kind of thing. And I just think that we've got to continue in this part to stay in our lane. And, like you said, I learned yesterday that, of an Info News article that said that basically I wasn't telling the truth about making a phone call to a senior person at BC Ambulance Service. But I did make that call, and then I did make another call yesterday, and hopefully we'll get staff of our department and staff of their department to work together and see if we can't come up with some solutions moving forward. Again, this response, even if we get this all set up on the taxpayer's dime, you still got to wait for an ambulance to come. You can't transport the patient. So I really think that we've got to continue to, once we start to download stuff ourselves, it's going to be it's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, right? If you move forward with this crisis response team that KFR was sort of advocating for, I mean, that's just one thing that you kind of say to the province, oh, well, we'll take on this. And once you start doing that, the province isn't going to take it back at any point, right? If you start doing that work yourself here as a community in our city, then the municipality is going to be stuck with it. So I think, like you said, slippery slope, right?
Yeah, and I've talked to some firefighters. I mean, I can't speak for all, but I've talked to some. If they wanted to be ambulance attendants, they would. I mean, they're dealing with enough. There's a lot of fires around the city. They're very busy. take more on. I just think, and again, like I said, I can't speak of what's going to happen with BC Ambulance Service, but I did speak to a person in a senior position. I didn't, a media person at a certain outfit might phone and call a 1-800 number and get some information, and then basically call the mayor's. It's like I didn't make the phone call. Again, and I learned it from our chief yesterday about an Info News article, which I hadn't even read till yesterday. I didn't even know, because I don't rely on the media to make my decisions.
Now, how optimistic or pessimistic are you that BC Ambulance Services can come through and give us some help without having to go down, as you said, that slippery slope?
Well, again, I made that call just before the last committee of the whole meeting, and it sounded positive. It sounded like something. As a matter of fact, she said, if you can just slow things down, that's all I've done. I've just tried to slow it down, and that's what I've done. And I'm optimistic. I believe that we've got to talk. I mean, I asked our one of our staff members, our chief, yesterday in an open meeting. It was open if he spoke to BC Ambulance Services, and he hadn't spoke to them. So yesterday I made a phone call, and hopefully our administration will be talking to their staff. Will talk to our staff. That's not my doing, but again. I think that the two parties start working together, and thus continue to push or ask BC Ambulance Service if we can get some more support. And I understand that there might be something coming. And again, I'm not saying that we're getting this or that, but they are going to be coming up with some announcements in the next little while.
We're here with Kamloops Mayor Reid Hamer-Jackson. Now, I did want to ask quickly about the conversation about grants that was held yesterday. This is something I know you've talked quite a bit about, grant funding and what the city has done with dollars that have been allocated towards the city. But the conversation yesterday was in regards to you saying basically we should be doing more. We should be able to get more grants from senior governments. At least that's kind of how I understood it. There was obviously a big explanation here about the amount of time that goes into a grant funding application, the fact you have to have kind of a plan in place where if they say no, well, you're still going to be able to fund it as a municipality. So there's a lot of difficulty, I think, to go about getting approvals for these grants. Are you satisfied with kind of the answer you heard from the corporate services director yesterday, or do you think that there is still a lot more that we could be doing as a community to get money from senior governments?
Well, we never even had a grant writer. I mean, prior to me being the mayor, we never even had a grant writer for about a year. When I talked to other mayors around the province, and one mayor in the Kootenays who tells me they've got too many grants. We've got a grant writer now. I think that I think she's doing a great job. Again, when I look on the websites of the provincial and federal government, and you see grants, and when I go down to the UBCM to agriculture tour and speak to staff there and find out there's grants there. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of aging infrastructure grants, and they come and go. So I think that we really got to focus on it. I mean, when I talked about grants prior, a little bit ago in one of the council meetings, and one of the councillors piped up and said, grants are like winning a lottery. And I'm like, well, why would we hire a staff member to buy lottery tickets for us? So I think grants are really effective. I mean, we just lost out on a grant here yesterday. Well, I guess it was a bit ago, but we just learned about it yesterday. Where Kelowna got $32 million, and if you look at other cities around that are collecting grants, it's quite a substantial amount of money. I mean, I remember there was an agriculture grant that Kelowna had was $30 million, and like I said, I think we really got to focus on that and try to take the burden off of the local taxpayer. I mean, it's all taxes, it's all our money anyways. It's federal and provincial grant money comes from communities, right? So it's all of our money. It's just us paying a little portion less,
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. And again, it was brought up. Well, somebody said something about taking half the roof off Sandman Center. Well, no. I think that you apply for that grant, you get the grant, and then you do the work. You don't do it after, So I found that a little bit shocking that someone would say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we all would like to see more grant because more grant funding means less tax dollars. Less tax dollars means I have to pay less to the city. I mean, it's just a trickle-down effect. So we're all in favor of getting more money from other governments if possible. So I don't think anyone disagrees with the concept of what you're hoping here. And let's hope we have more success, right?
Yeah, and part of the reason why I'm the mayor today, part of the reason, is because of a $2.5 million grant in 2021 called the Strengthening Homeless and Community Grant funding. And we only got 1.46 out of a $2.5 million grant. I mean, Kelowna was only, it went by population, Kelowna was only supposed to get a 2.5, and they got 3.2. We got 1.46, 469 something. But anyway, Vernon got what they wanted. Nanaimo got what they wanted. Cowichan Valley got what they wanted. Penticton got what they wanted. So, really got to focus on it. But like I said, we didn't have a grant writer for almost a year, and that's prior to me being the mayor. But now we've got one, and I just think we got to continue to focus on them. And like I said, when I brought that up in council chambers, and one of the councilors said that it's like buying a lottery ticket. One of our staff members came down to my office and said, "Where did you find those?" And I showed her where they were and everything. And so I think it's moving forward. I think we got to continue to do that, and not only that, we got to continue to try to gain revenue from our assets, like our properties and things like that. So.
I just got a couple quick questions I want to ask you before we wrap up because we're coming up on time. Obviously, is a pretty high tax increase this year, as we mentioned off the top. 9.55% is what is being looked at here before things are officially finalized. I can't imagine that'll change. But are you hoping to see, or are you confident you can see that be quite a bit smaller in 2025? Obviously, we're going to have to deal with it for this year, but we can't keep seeing like a near 10% increase year over year. That's just, I don't think something citizens can handle.
Well, I think that we can. I think what we've got to do is really focus on what we're doing. Again, like I said, when we're leasing out properties for $1 a year for basically 5 years, and yet some people are getting $40,000 a month for the same type of services. I think we got to change that, and it's like I said, I followed Parksville a little bit down there, and where they've got an asset that they're going to have through BC Housing. They opened the supportive housing there a few years ago, and it's very successful. It's ran. They have operators running it, but it's at the end of the day, it's going to be a city asset, and not a nonprofit asset. And we've got to start to have a really good look at that, I feel, so that they can be the asset of the city instead of us, giving that up to, and with the help of BC Housing, building these buildings,
Mm-hmm. Well, I do have to wrap up. Unfortunately, we're pretty much out of time. We got news in like 90 seconds. So, Mr. Mayor, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us and getting up early to join NL Mornings here. Always appreciate it. We'll do it again down the road.
Sounds good. Maybe we'll see you at the next hockey game.
Sounds good. Can't wait. There you go. Mayor Reid Hamer-Jackson joining us here.